Hey guys, today I'm going to teach you how to make a mask using the latex fabric method, and this way you'll get a vintage, cool Scarecrow type look to your mask. I'm going to start with the materials. You're going to need some latex. This is Monster Maker's latex, not a necessity. Some chip brushes, fabric, and some plastic bags. Doesn't matter what fabric, guys. You can use old t-shirts, whatever. I'm going to go ahead and start putting these bags on the head. And what I'm essentially doing is building up the armature. This way, well, for one, the mask isn't going to stick to the armature as easy. So it'll be easier to take it off. And secondly, it won't be so tight or form-fitting. It'll be a little bit larger size mask, and also help develop the overall shape. I'm going ahead and tying the ends of the bag just to make sure that the shape stays secure. And I'm going to go ahead and take the larger piece of fabric and throw it over the armature. And this is just going to be acting as my base. Taking a smaller piece of fabric, more string-like, and then using it as a tie almost around the neck to also, like I said before, establish shape in the mask. Well, like I said earlier in the video, we're going for this vintagey type Scarecrow look, homemade look. I'll go ahead and cut the eyes out here now. And none of this has to be done in any particular way, guys. No matter what or how you do this, you're always going to get a different look. That's why typically when I sell these masks, they're one of a kind. It's hard to replicate this process over and over again. You're always going to get a different result. And we're going to use these chip brushes and the latex, and we're going to start just kind of coating this fabric over our armature. Now, when it's almost like when you made those like tissue glue ghosts in kindergarten, where it just takes the shape of whatever you morph it into. That's essentially the same type of process that this is. So because I gave it this baggy type of shape, and the mask is very much going to look like this baggy type of Scarecrow, and you're just going to want to try to brush it on as evenly as possible, not too heavy, and also be aware that latex sticks to itself. So when you're brushing this fabric, it is drying as you're brushing it on, and it will stick to itself very easily. So you want to keep that under control. Notice I'm also not going over too much over the neck area. If you go over heavily on the neck, then you're going to have less movement. And this is, I'm going to start cutting up smaller pieces of fabric to build up that base. Just essentially making it a overall stronger mask. Like doing the one coat, letting it dry and painting it is fine. Depending on what you're using it for, but if you're going for a sturdy Halloween mask, then you're definitely going to want to build it up from there. And after I cut holes in that other piece of fabric and placed it over the eye, and then I'm just repeating the same step and brushing the latex over. If you see, you can notice me cutting or pushing my fingers in the eyes. That's just to remember where those eyes are. You can kind of see here where the latex in the plastic bag almost looks the same. You don't want to lose that eye shape. I cut a separate piece of fabric and I'm making the mouth out of it. There's a specific reason why I didn't cut the mouth out before, and basically it's because the more you cut the base fabric, the harder it is going to be able to piece all of this together. Again, using the same technique and brushing the latex over the fabric, and I arced that piece of fabric almost as a frown, and that's the type of mouth I want for my end result. So again, I'm doing the same process. Piece of fabric, latexing it on. And I cut my mouth because I feel like I had it, good enough. And I'm just re-establishing that with some latex. And now I'm piecing on some burlap. Burlap's obviously optional. It depends on whatever you're looking for. Like I said earlier in the video, it's going to take the shape of whatever you're putting on the armature. So let's say if you put a clown mask on the armature and you do this same fabric process over that, it's going to very well take the shape of the clown. In this case, we're just making a scarecrow mask, so I'm building scarecrow elements into the mask, like burlap strands on the mouth, burlap strands on the eyes, burlap patches sporadically throughout the mask. And then we'll take much smaller cut pieces of fabric and just kind of puzzle them in. Cover your edges, with the burlap or other pieces of fabric you obviously have, showing edges for. You'll just use those smaller piece of fabrics to kind of cover that and give a better look to the face. And now I'm not putting these pieces of fabric on the mask in any particular way, aside from, like I said, covering those edges of where the burlap is, stray pieces of fabric or other fabric edges, just to give a little bit cleaner look on the face. But overall, this is not going to be a clean looking mask. That's the whole point. And now when I'm going over the latex on these, because they're smaller pieces of fabric, you're definitely going to want to press in. If you brush it, the fabric's going to fold over itself, and it's going to be falling all over the place. You're going to have a damn mess. So you're definitely going to want to press in with these smaller fabric pieces. This is just continuous buildup in other places. Went over the neck a bit. Now I'm going to start tearing up the bottom of the neck. And it's just going to have that, tattered, torn, homemade scarecrow look. And I'll repeat that all around the mask. I start with a single cut and then tear it. I feel if I'm tearing it, you'll get that better, more realistic look, worn look to it. And this is what it'll look like. This is final assembly, and we'll be able to move on to the paint step after this dries. Alright, so materials for paint. I use my own mixture of rubber cement or contact cement and oil paints. The oil paints just kind of dissolve in the cement, and typically you'll use naphtha to kind of thin out that combination. I didn't have it in the video. And you're just going to want to take your chip brush and basically base coat this mask. I use this same paint method to base coat all my masks. It sticks to the latex just fine. It's also easier because it is, oil colors essentially, pigmented, rubber cement. You can get nice blends with it as well. If you decide to make this mask two tones, you'd be able to do that very easily and have a nice look to it. Now that I got the mask all based out, all completely one color, we're gonna go ahead and start a black wash. Now, what I'm using here is just basic black acrylic paint. I know a lot of you have probably heard not to use acrylic paint on masks or latex because it doesn't stick and it tends to flake off. But because this is a wash, it is so watered down, you're not going to have that same effect. So I wouldn't worry about that. And you're just kind of, throwing the watered down black on there pretty heavily. I tend to go over the eyes and mouth a lot more. Obviously, if this mask was worn for, 100 years or stuck in the field in the middle of nowhere, then, those type of features would be more worn, the edges of the mask, which was already black fabric, which worked out. And then you're going to take the paper towel and just kind of dab at it. You can take the paper towel and dab at it, wipe it down, and it'll basically just fill in all that detail for you. Again, I'm going over the eyes and the mouth a little heavier, just for a more worn and dirtier look. Dab at it, lift some of that paint off, and pretty much done. After it dries, you're gonna have that kind of worn looking, mask ready, and then we'll just go over it with a white dry brush. This is basically gonna just lift all that texture from all those different fabrics and all the folds in the fabric, the natural folds in the fabric. It'll lift all that detail out. So while the black is still kind of there in the background, you can see it's clearly dirty looking, but you'll be able to see a lot more detail on all that fabric you just laid. And this will be your look after that. I used Plasti Dip to seal the paint job on the mask. This is a white Plasti Dip, so it's going to spray white, which goes with the overall theme of the mask. It's going to give it this dusty look. You can get gloss, clear, red, black, whatever you plan on doing. It doesn't matter. I tend to use white because it gives it that dusty look on these specific masks, and that's what I'm going for, is that, old-timey, handmade look.
Final product.